welcome to At America. Woo, I like the spirit. How's everyone doing tonight? Ooh, okay, nice. So my name is Sadila. I'm one of the e-guides here in At America, the U.S. Embassy's American Center. I would like to welcome all of our audience joining us here with me, especially from IPB University. Hello, guys. And also to those who are watching us online, we hope that you are all doing great and staying safe. So tonight we will see an exceptional performance of a scientist. You may wonder what he's going to perform, but it'll be something you've probably never seen or heard before. But before we start the event, let us hear an opening remarks from the Assistant Cultural Affairs Officer of the U.S. Embassy Jakarta. Everyone, please welcome Ibu Grace Clegg.
Malam semua. Sudah bersama enggak ya? Baik. Nama saya Grace Clegg dan saya adalah Asisten Kebudayaan di Kedutaan Besar Amerika Serikat di Jakarta. Terima kasih. Serius loh. Saya punya pekerjaan menarik, yaitu bertemu dengan orang-orang hebat yang berani menyuarakan pendapat mereka kepada dunia. Dan itulah yang akan terjadi malam ini. Saya bertemu dengan Ben Mirin ketika kami mengundang grup musik asal Amerika The Beatbox House ke Indonesia. Ben adalah teman baik mereka dan dia datang dari Jogja untuk lihat penampilan The Beatbox House di Tangerang. Yo, Ben is dope. Or Ben keren banget. Kata mereka. Dia seperti Indiana Jones di kehidupan nyata. Ya, benar. So, dari mereka saya mengetahui bahwa Ben adalah seorang penerima beasiswa bergengsi Fulbright. Jadi, ada yang pernah dengar tentang Fulbright? No? Oke, tidak apa-apa. Selama lebih dari 70 tahun, program pertukaran tersebut sudah membawa 4.000 orang Indonesia dan Amerika ke dalam dua negara kami untuk pendidikan, lanjutan, penelitian, dan pemahaman. Dan saya juga tahu dari mereka, dari The Beatbox House, bahwa Ben adalah seorang musisi dan juga beatboxer. Ditambah juga ahli burung. Jadi saya pikir, wow, keren sekali. Terus setelah bertemu Ben dan tahu mengenai penelitian Fulbright-nya di Indonesia dan bagaimana dia menggunakan musik untuk memberikan pendidikan kepada orang-orang mengenai lingkungan, menurut saya, astaga, ayo undang dia ke Amerika dong. Ya, benar-benar. Ben adalah bukti untuk dua hal. Yang pertama, program Fulbright tidak hanya untuk orang-orang akademisi. Program ini untuk siapa saja yang mempunyai keinginan dan rasa ingin tahu yang tinggi untuk belajar dengan orang Amerika atau orang Indonesia. Yang kedua, dan inilah penting, sains dan seni bisa dicampur. Dulu ada pemikiran bahwa ada dua tipe orang. Ada orang yang ahli dalam sains dan orang yang ahli dalam seni. Ternyata itu tidak benar. Ben suka keduanya dan ia ahli dalam dua bidang tersebut. Ini penting karena untuk mengatasi masalah-masalah besar di dunia seperti perubahan iklim dan perlindungan lingkungan, kita perlu menggunakan semua kemampuan kita. Dengan ini, terima kasih pada Amanaf yang mengajarkan program Fulbright di Indonesia, kepada semua yang telah hadir, dan yang paling penting, kepada Ben untuk acara yang luar biasa ini. Enjoy the show, everybody.
Thank you so much, Bu Grace, for the wonderful opening remarks. So now, everyone, since Bu Grace have already introduced about our performance tonight, are you guys ready to hear the beats from the nature? Woo! Okay, without further ado, I will pass the stage to our moderator, Reza Al-Qadri.
Yeah. Thank you for the clap. A little bit awkward. Once again, thank you for the clap. That's right. How we doing tonight at America? Gimana kabarnya nih? Anak kuliah ayo lebih semangat lagi ya. Coba ya. Bantu ya sekali lagi ya. Kita ulang dari awal ya. Oke, 1, 2, 3. Anak kuliah apa kabarnya? That's what I wanna hear. So tonight we're gonna have so much fun. Perkenalkan, nama gue adalah Reza Al-Qadri and I'm gonna be the moderator. So after the performance dari Ben, we're gonna do some Q&A. So you're gonna be asking a lot of questions, probably a lot of curiosity yang bakal terjawab sama Ben nanti sebentar lagi. Tapi sebelumnya, kita akan kenalan lebih jauh sama seorang Ben Mirin. Dia adalah seorang Fulbright Hays Doctoral Dissertation Research Abroad Fellow, a beatboxer, sound recordist, and lifelong lover of birds. PhD candidate at Cornell University Labs of Ornithology, Fulbright Scholar at Universitas Gadjah Mada, Yogyakarta. Kita bakal ngelihat performance-nya secara langsung, yang tadi sudah dibilang sama Bu Grace ya, antara sains dan juga kesenian ternyata bisa bersatu ketika Ben ada di sini. So let's find out, ladies and gentlemen. Berikan tepuk tangan yang paling meriah. Ini dia, performance dari Ben Mirin.
Jakarta, these are the sounds of our planet. Are you ready? Come on!
sing. Half like, come on, sing, sing. Half like, come on, sing, sing. Half like, come on, sing, sing. Come on, sing.
Come on, take a ride. Come on, take a ride with me. Say, ride that wave. Say, ride that wave. Say, ride that beat like an ocean wave. Come on. Thank you for having me tonight. It's so nice to see all of you. Thanks so much for coming out. My name is Ben Mirin, and I am your Wildlife DJ for this evening. All the sounds you just heard were sampled directly from the voices of nature. And I'm really proud to call myself a Wildlife DJ because that means I get to work between the incredible orchestras that are singing all over our planet and the stage here where we get to enjoy them together. Now, as you may have heard before, I'm a PhD candidate at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. I'm a Fulbright Hays Fellow at Universitas Gadjah Mada in Jogja. But my journey to becoming a researcher is, well, you can probably tell, a little different than most. For several years before becoming a PhD candidate, I was a full-time National Geographic explorer and wildlife DJ, conservationist, sound recordist. I would get to travel the world and record these sounds and try to make art that would celebrate nature and reach new audiences. But let's go back to the sounds that you heard when I first walked on stage. That's the real source of my inspiration. These are some voices you might recognize. Look at this handsome fella. This is a video from the Birds of Paradise project by my colleagues Tim Lehman and Ed Scholes. It features a Goldie's bird of paradise performing some stunning vocal displays and, of course, having some visual displays to match. I can talk all day about this bird, but I'd rather let him speak for himself. So let's hear what he has to say. Silakan. Come on. Oh, what a performance, right? Astonishing. Let's give it up for the birds. As you can see, males of this species perform coordinated displays, both physically and vocally. It's the result of millions of years of sexual selection and evolution that produce these traits and such incredible examples of nature's beauty. And we analyze them at my lab, which is the Yang Center for Conservation Bioacoustics at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, oftentimes using a spectrogram like this, which to me is an art form unto itself, but really it's a graphical representation of sound. You have time on the x-axis and frequency on the y-axis. And this is left and right stereo, so it's the same on the top and the bottom. But you can see all the intricacies of the signal you just listened to, that amazing duet between those two males. It's spelled out, it's written out in this spectrographic analysis, and the brighter parts are the louder bits as well. Now, bioacousticians like myself, or acoustic biologists as we're sometimes called, use these graphical readouts to understand the intricacies of animal behavior. Sometimes if you're listening to things for hours on end, your ears start to play tricks on you and they get tired and you can't hear the details anymore. So that's when you're saved by the spectrogram, because there's a lot of detail that can be analyzed here. Detecting acoustic signals like these can actually provide strong arguments for protecting wild places. It indicates the presence of rare or endangered species, which then we can point to when we say we need to protect these wild lands. We need to write new policies, new laws in defense of these wild living things. Sound can also measure the overall species abundance and richness of an ecosystem, which can change as a habitat comes under threat from climate change, biodiversity loss, and of course, human beings. It can even be used to detect human pressure, like poaching and deforestation, when you record the sounds of chainsaws, gunshots, human voices, and the absence of species that might otherwise indicate forest health. Sound gives us a different way to pay attention, and it reaches new kinds of people. Music and bioacoustics are a natural combination, especially when you make music directly from nature. The cleaner the recording, the more we can learn about it, and the more beautiful it sounds when you put it to music. I'd like to take you now to another ecosystem that's a little more close to where we are right now. Would you like to hear it? Would you like to hear it? Okay. We're going to take a tour now to the rainforests of Kalimantan. Yeah. When you live in a dense ecosystem like a rainforest, sometimes it can be difficult to see your friends through the trees. So you have to make contact another way. You can fly up to the treetops and sing like a bird. Do you hear that? So we have golden whiskered barbet, chestnut-winged babbler, some beautiful singers. But this strategy is not unique to birds. Lots of primates use sound to survive, like this gibbon. Check his voice out. And don't forget the orangutan. If we really listen to nature, we can bring all our voices together as one. Clap your hands, come on. Bounce again, hands up. Hey. Now move. Thank you. And round of applause again for the rainforest. Before starting my PhD, I got to make music like this all over the world. I would lead or participate in research expeditions to collect rare sounds and then work with local artists to produce anthems to nature. As a universal language, music became an emancipatory tool, reaching audiences outside the traditional scope of science communication and highlighting new voices in the discussion of our collective future. I expanded this idea by making a computer game called Beastbox that lets anyone make music from our collection of animal sounds. The game shares the idea with the world so that anyone can become a wildlife DJ and appreciate nature through sound and music. My hope is that these creative experiences encourage all of you to apply your passions and talents to conservation, because we are at a time in history where we desperately need new ideas and creativity in how we protect nature for the future. This sense of urgency comes from my own experience in unique ecosystems. One particular expedition to Honduras set these goals in stark relief. Working with herpetologist Jonathan Colby, filmmaker Katie Garrett, and our naturalists Santiago Argueta and Miguel and Ana Mejia, together in 2018, we ventured into the northwestern cloud forests of Honduras to try and capture the unheard voice of the exquisite spike-thumbed frog, Plectrohyla exquisita. Bam, there he is. Hey, buddy. This frog is endemic to the cloud forests of Honduras, and because it lives nowhere else, that makes it extremely vulnerable to threats from climate change, deforestation, and human-borne pathogens. Currently, it is critically endangered. Sound is an essential tool for protecting endangered frogs. Conservationists will actually play the sounds of a frog back to a captive population to encourage them to reproduce. But without any recordings of this frog species, we have no soundtrack to set the mood. When we arrived in Casuco in May of 2018, the frogs were everywhere. To our great surprise, we found them sitting in pools of water in broad daylight. Now, I should mention, this is a nocturnal tree frog, so it lives way in the canopy and it's active at night. So why on earth would this frog climb all the way down and jump in the water when the sun is shining? Well, we didn't know, so we decided to hike down the Casuco River later that night. We took an aquatic microphone, which is different from this. It's called a hydrophone, but we just lowered it into the water from this tripod. And as soon as we put the mic in the water, we heard this sound. It was a consistent mechanical click, repeated 5 or 6 times, every 5 to 10 seconds. But we still didn't know what it was. Then our guide, Miguel, grabbed my shoulder and he pointed. Mira, la rana está aquí. The frog is here. I turned and I saw this frog swimming through the water towards the tripod. And I put the headphones on and I heard it. It wrapped its hands around the tripod and started to climb. And as it left the water, the sound stopped. John and I were stunned. What we just heard might be the first ever recording of the exquisite spike-thumbed frog. As good scientists, it's important to be skeptical, to collect lots of evidence to support your claims, And so we're still conducting experiments to make sure that this is really the identity of this sound. But if it is, I mean, imagine it's the first time we're hearing the voice of this frog, and just in time, because it's almost extinct. And so this is exciting both because it represents scientific discovery, almost by accident. There was nothing like this in the textbooks. We just saw the frog in the water and tried something, which means you can be a good researcher just by, you should always read the literature, but you can go in the field and see things that don't make sense according to the books. And it's okay to break the rules and just try new experiments for yourself. And it's exciting because it's new to science, but it also represents a potential way to bring these frogs back from the edge of extinction. If we can play it back and get them to reproduce, we can actually rebuild the population. Since making discoveries like these, I've realized I want science to be at the core of my work. It's inspired me to produce independent films, write and publish books with indigenous communities, and even create and host my own television series on National Geographic a few years ago. It's called Wild Beats on Nat Geo Kids. This is also what brought me to Cornell to do my PhD research and to Indonesia to initiate my fieldwork. My goal with art and media, and now with science, is to bring nature's voices to life so that folks like all of you can understand these topics more deeply and experience them through multiple dimensions. After all, we cannot save what we do not love, and we cannot love what we don't understand. Understanding the world requires that we understand ourselves. So before we jump into my research, I thought I'd provide a little bit more context about who I am. This video should do the trick. This is from me when I was age 3. I'm explaining penguin sounds to my grandma.
Yes. Did you know that Benny's an expert on penguins?
No.
He knows all. Tell Suzanne about the penguins you know. What kind of penguins? Tell her about the chin-strap penguin.
King penguin.
And king penguins.
Oh, oh, oh.
Right. How about
Dead on.
Remember macaroni?
Who's macaroni?
Macaroni, oh.
Macaroni's a kind of a penguin, is it?
Yes, it's oh, oh, oh.
And then isn't there a penguin that's
Look
called...
at that fly. Don't fly. You
How about-
play.
Isn't there a penguin called a rockhopper? Benny?
A rock, yes.
It is incredible.
A scientist in the making. As you can tell, I've always loved animal sounds, especially bird songs. And across Indonesia, there are millions of people who share my passion, but they express it in a very different way. This is the Indonesian singing contest. In this video, dozens of men watch and whistle encouragement to a group of mountain white-eyes, or pleci, as they sing for glory. As the birds sing instinctively in each other's presence, groups of human judges patrol beneath the cages, rating the birds' performances based on song, repertoire, plumage, and movement. Many of these birds have been poached from the wild and trained to sing for human amusement. For me, it was jarring to witness these accomplished singers performing inside a cage. But for the men gathered here, the event represents a chance to come together, connect with nature, and cultivate a refined sense of their manhood based on leisure and community. People say there are 5 key ingredients to being a traditional Javanese man: a house, a wife, a kris, or a dagger, a car, and a bird. And the list varies depending on who you're talking to. But this final ingredient, the bird, connects a man, and increasingly women, with their sensitive side. It distracts them from their daily toils and ultimately makes them more refined. The result here is a clash of civilizations as songs shaped for survival socialize humans and birds alike. Since the mid-1970s, singing contests have stimulated a robust global trade in both wild-caught and captive-bred songbirds. Contests currently take place in 25 countries, and demand for new singers opens up international avenues for legal and illegal wildlife trade. Nowhere are these contests bigger than in Indonesia, where winning brings social prestige and in some cases, huge sums of prize money, up to 10 years' salary. These high stakes create a vicious cycle, raising the prominence of singing contests, which in turn drives demand. That cycle has become so intense that many forests in Indonesia are starting to sound more like this. They're falling silent. Hunters are harvesting these birds to extinction in the wild. Imagine a beautiful choir, shaped by millions of years of evolution, losing its voice as its singers are plucked off stage, one by one. Researchers call this silent forest syndrome, and here in Java, many forests and even national parks are suffering from this affliction. But silence in one forest does not stop the trade. It just moves it elsewhere. When one forest starts to lose its bird songs, hunters will move to another and harvest the birds there. And as one species is harvested or collected over a bigger area in its range, the overall population starts to crash. And unfortunately, when a bird gets really rare in the wild, it's even more valuable and demand increases even more until eventually that bird can be poached to extinction. And the only place you can find it is in a cage. That's happened to several species now in Indonesia and across Southeast Asia. And unfortunately, when those species go extinct, the trade shifts focus to other species that are now in the crosshairs. Already encumbered by pressure from habitat loss and fragmentation, 43 bird species in Southeast Asia are facing this kind of trade-driven extinction. Once birds are in captivity, they also begin to lose their wild songs. Songbirds learn how to sing early in life from their adult parents and neighbors, giving local populations unique repertoires and vocalizations. It's like an accent for a local place. You know, if you go across Indonesia, people may speak Bahasa Indonesia, but it sounds different. It's very similar for songbirds too. It's kind of like a local culture. But what does that mean when we lose that local accent, right? When a local population is erased, even if the overall population is still intact, we've lost the voice of that particular ecosystem. And if wild songs disappear completely, then the birds we have in captivity no longer possess the sounds necessary to survive in nature. My linguistics colleagues might debate my choice of words here, but I'll say it anyway. The birds lose their language. Solving the Asian songbird trade crisis is a challenge that requires collaboration. This is especially true between bird keepers and conservationists, and between researchers across all of our nations. Bird keeping is an ancient tradition interwoven with personal identity. It is passed from parents to their children, discussed around the dinner table, and it's embedded in the frameworks that people use to navigate their place in the world. Trying to erase this culture is not going to save the birds. If anything, it alienates the people whose actions directly affect their survival. And if you try to erase this tradition, then the people who hold it dear will fight for it. They will defend it. This is partially because of human nature and partially because of Indonesia's colonial past. Until the nation achieved independence on August 17th, 1945, traditions like bird keeping were suppressed by foreign powers who wanted to westernize the nation. Today, bird keeping is a multi-trillion rupiah industry that provides jobs and pleasure to millions of people. It has exploded in step with Indonesia's development and is seen by many as part of the country's progress and prestige. But what is a country without its nature? Indonesia has some of the most stunning wildlife and wild places on Earth. They are national treasures, and they're living things. Compromise is important, but not at the expense of action. How then can we ensure that these beings have a place in our future as nations around the world speed towards development in a capitalist system where life is a commodity and profit conquers all? First, we need to look at how we got here. Incessant economic growth takes an incredible toll on the planet, and the path for development in the West has been paved over countless ecosystems and living things. Instead of pretending we have all the answers, we must accept that we've made some huge mistakes and approach modern development as a chance to do better than we did before. This requires a combination of strategies, some from the top down, some from the grassroots. And for all of you sitting here today who might be wondering, how do I get involved in this? How does this impact my life? Well, with so many options for impact, that means there are lots of opportunities for you. This issue concerns all of us in this room, in this island, in this country, in this world. Because if our living beings aren't free, then neither are we. We lose a piece of ourselves. If you're wondering, okay, that's sad to hear and it sounds important, but where do I start, right? It can be overwhelming. But I would recommend that you start with your passions. Our research these last 10 months has focused on the grassroots and used education and storytelling to inspire a connection with nature. Starting last September, our work began with students telling their own stories, and these are students just a couple years older than you. They're undergraduates from universities across Yogyakarta, and we recruited them, trained them in journalistic techniques like how to use a camera, how to do an interview, how to record sound with a microphone, and together they used these techniques to paint a picture of the songbird trade in their backyard. With help from local partners, we mapped a traded songbird's journey from the forest to the stage, speaking with community informants at every step. These included conservationists, bird hunters, vendors in bird markets, and even trainers who buy birds and teach them how to sing. I bet you'd have never heard of bird school before, but trust me, it's a thing. We met captive breeders and dealers who have stocks that started with wild birds, but are now standalone captive populations. And finally, we talked to bird keepers and even some judges at singing contests, where traded birds make their debut and prove their worth to their human owners. One of the most impactful experiences was when we had shadowed bird poachers on the hunt. The following words, sounds, and images are from my students, with a couple additions from me. You can read the slides, listen, and follow along.
Ya dulu cuma yang ngajarin mikat itu malah Pak RW yang ngajarin, Pak RW sekarang itu yang ngajarin mikat. Terus ikut-ikutan cari, pas ya itu kok kayaknya mudah, kayaknya enak, gitu. Dapat uang. Nanti ya lokasinya nanti.
Welcome to New Rixing. The Bluetooth device is ready to pair.
Just so you're ready, the next few images are a bit disturbing.
Alah, sih. Kerak basi, Cuk. Dulu. Ngomong kenceng. Yang dua lepas. Culkis.
My students were at the center of this work. They were immersed in the action at every step. And in the end, they produced a media archive of over 10,000 photographs, almost 2,000 sound recordings, and 24 in-depth interviews across 18 field sites. And they did all of it in less than 3 months. They also annotated and cataloged this entire archive, which was a huge amount of work, a tremendous effort. Then they synthesized their favorite images and recordings into a nuanced portrait of conservation that focused on humans as well as on birds. Our students shared their work formally at UGM this past January, and rather than emphasize the differences between bird keeping and conservation, they argued for community engagement on both sides. As one of my students put it, we hope this becomes a starting point for people to discuss together, not just conservationists with conservationists and traders with traders, but a place where representatives from all communities can come together and explore how we can achieve coexistence together in the long term. To achieve this vision, our team has started analyzing our students' work in greater depth. This collection of media represents how the next generation perceives, interprets, and challenges questions about the songbird trade. They are the next generation of leaders, just like all of you in Indonesia, and you're going to inherit these challenges. You know, we can start to work on them, the people who are my age, but conservation is a forever business. What we start, you must continue because our survival depends on it. And so it's important that we understand how each generation feels and thinks so we can communicate better. We've also expanded our students' investigation. Before we finished working together, I asked my students, if you had one more month, who would you talk to? Where would you go? What questions would you still ask? And they told me, and I asked, well, if I may have your permission, I'd like to continue and answer those questions. So we have now, based on their answers, conducted dozens of additional interviews and combined their discoveries with our own. Some of our investigations led us to new informants, while others brought us back in touch with old friends. Most recently, we caught up with one of our hunters at his new job at a restaurant in Yogyakarta City. We learned about his transition and the wisdom he had to share with other hunters looking to make a change. We've also talked to community organizations that promote and celebrate conservation from inside the bird-keeping world. We're learning how they define conservation, how much they understand its concepts, and whether their members embrace its practice. Most recently, I went bird watching with a former hunter who is now a full-time bird guide, and he is a natural in the field, incredibly skilled, and now he's using his talents to find birds in the forest without catching them. His whole village is moving with him and becoming an ecotourism destination where people can take pictures and record sounds instead of taking the birds directly from nature. All this time, we've been sharing the knowledge contained in these stories through a curriculum about traded songbirds. It's titled Songs of Conservation. We created this curriculum based on our ethnographic work with help from my students, my research team, and senior high school biology teachers in Yogyakarta. And I almost forgot, but it's down here. We've even printed a book. Songs of Conservation. And yeah. So we're distributing this at all of our partner schools right now. We just finished piloting the program for 150 students across 4 public schools, and we collected data about its impact on their attitudes, knowledge, and behaviors towards traded songbirds. To lead the lessons, we hired assistant teachers from the community, including assistant teachers from our group of students, so that they could come back and work with me as peer-to-peer mentors, teaching students very close to their age and sharing their firsthand field experiences with folks just like all of you. We presented the material in a mixture of English and Indonesian so that our students could improve their language skills, and conducted hands-on research to strengthen critical thinking. Now that our data collection is complete, our goal is to identify what kinds of students may be most amenable or most likely to make environmentally friendly changes in their lives. We plan to publish our findings so that we can help other researchers focus their outreach on groups of people who show the greatest potential for positive change. Every time I stand in front of a classroom, and especially as I'm standing in front of all of you right now, I'm reminded that impact goes both ways. I've learned a lot about my topic studying it these last few years, but if folks like all of you ask your own critical questions, if you think critically about what these challenges mean for all of us, I'm positive you will ask questions and have ideas that I have never thought of. And that's the beauty of collaboration and of trust, if we can trust each other and work as a team. It all starts with this common message. Conservation concerns all of us. Your gifts and your ideas are welcome here, and we need you now more than ever. There is much our countries can learn from each other. Illegal songbird keeping is growing in the United States. And as new populations of wild birds come under threat, we must remember that this is a human challenge. We hope that sharing our findings from this research will help the world embrace Indonesia as a source of solutions, not just an example of the problem, so then we can listen and learn together. After a lifetime of studying birds and listening to their songs, I sometimes still can't imagine how millions of people trade and sell my passion as a commodity. But true collaboration requires leaving your assumptions at the door. We can study birdsong to win a singing contest or to learn about nature, but how we coexist is a question we must decide together for the sake of humans and non-human beings alike. We need each other, and the time is now. I would like to thank all of these organizations and the countless individuals who have helped me on this research and in this career. I never thought I could take two passions, nature and music, combine them, and get to do stuff like this. It just goes to show, if you have a hobby you think nobody wants to hear or wants to know about, let it out. See what the world tells you. It could be worth it, and it could open up all kinds of career possibilities. I would like to thank Ad America for connecting all of us, because your attention is my privilege. Thanks also to my research team here in Indonesia, without whose support I don't think I could have done any of this. And I'd also like to thank my academic committee at Cornell University, Princeton University, and the University of Oxford. Some of them I think are watching the live stream right now, so thank you all. If you'd like to keep up with our work, you can follow me at Ben Mirin on Instagram. Our team has just received a Fulbright engagement grant to kickstart a photo exhibit where we're going to show my students' work here in Indonesia. Once we raise the rest of the money that we need, we're going to launch the exhibit in Yogyakarta and invite all the people you've seen in these photographs today to come attend the grand opening and engage in a focus group discussion where they see themselves on the wall represented in a dialogue about what conservation and sustainability really means. I'm also working on some artistic projects that capture birdsong without using a cage. For the last 2 months, I've been tracking down Indonesia's most traded songbirds and recording them where they still sing in the wild. These are 3 pieces from my collaboration with the Voice Gems project, which uses artificial intelligence to transform their voices into unique digital gems that will live in their archive for 1,000 years. Our goal with these pieces is to inspire action and reflect what we have in nature rather than what we've already lost. I'd like to give the last word today to the long-tailed shrike. Thank you very much.
All right, big round of applause once again, Ben Mirin. All right, right now, we're gonna do a little bit of a Q&A.
Sure, yeah.
You wanna do standing up or you wanna sit
Well,
down?
we migrate.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. After you.
Thank you.
We got some interesting questions, and I'm gonna do the first one by asking you this question from our Facebook,
Okay.
from a friend by the name of Michael.
Hi,
It's
Michael.
it's a question that I am curious to know the answer to as well. Have you ever accidentally recorded ghost or supernatural sound when you're in the forest?
Ghosts.
Because it's Indonesia,
Yes.
We got a lot of setan,
Yes.
jelangkung, pocong, and santet as well every day.
This is an interesting question. I, as a researcher, cannot provide any evidence of this.
Okay,
So it's important when you're a scientist not to make claims without proper evidence.
sure.
But there are tons of undiscovered sounds in the rainforests of Indonesia, in the
Okay.
mountains. And, you know, the belief in ghosts reminds me of the power of storytelling.
Sure.
Because ultimately, we're all telling our own stories, right? We want things to make sense so we can contextualize our existence on this rock that's hurtling through space, right? And sometimes when you live close to nature, you start to hear things that make more sense if you create stories around them. And maybe that's not scientific in the modern sense, but that doesn't mean it's not important. If you can find meaning by assigning a ghost story to something you heard in nature, that's wonderful because nature is a source of incredible meaning.
Sure.
And the stories that we tell each other can inspire others to reconnect with that same place.
Okay. So, not a ghost,
No,
but something undiscovered.
always. I mean, even the sounds in your backyard, you may think that everyone's done everything to listen to the nature around you. It's not true. That's the beauty of research.
Sure.
Endless questions.
Sure.
And we need a lot more answers.
Oke. Sudah terjawab ya? Jadi sudah terjawab yang penasaran, apakah ada suara setan? Ternyata seperti itu jawabannya ya.
Yeah.
And moving on to the next question, Tiara from our
Hi, Tiara.
Instagram. And she's asking the question, what are the challenges throughout your Indonesia expedition?
Oh, wow. Well, I think I'm still learning about those challenges.
Sure.
You know, I have one more week in my stay here, and I've been here for 10 months. I had to improve my language skills. I had to learn how to cook
Okay.
Indonesian food.
Okay.
And I think, even though my presentation today points to a lot of the things that we share across our countries, there are also some things that make us different.
Mhm.
And it's important to remember that those differences are worth celebrating. They also need to be taken seriously when you navigate new collaborations.
Okay.
I've tried to be as transparent as possible with people. We co-author agreements to spell out the expectations.
Mhm.
And, sometimes the rhythm at which I work and the rhythm at which people around me work is very different. I started this career working in New York City, which is just, go, go, go.
Hustle and bustle of
That's
New York
right.
City.
Yeah, and people in Jakarta might be more familiar with that. But one of the wonderful things about Jogja is it's santai. It's a little more chill, right?
Chill.
Yeah, but sometimes I have trouble being santai. So I've had to learn to be patient and to be flexible. And without the help of my research team, none of this would have happened because
Yeah.
you need that cultural fluency, that familiarity with how business gets done to really achieve any impact. So, yeah, there have been some challenges, but my team has really helped me a lot to
Sure,
navigate those.
And you overcome those challenges every day when you're
Yes, and you learn a lot about yourself
here.
in the
Sure.
process.
More chill.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Okay.
Still working on that.
And for the next question, we'll give the time for the audience. Mungkin teman-teman di sini ada yang ingin bertanya, silahkan langsung angkat tangan. Okay, we have our first question here. Can you
Yeah.
introduce yourself? Boleh dari bahasa Indonesia nggak apa-apa, nanti aku
Yeah.
translate nggak apa-apa.
Selamat malam, nama saya Shalaisha Audina, bisa dipanggil Gina.
Gina.
Saya ingin
Gina.
bertanya, apa yang menjadi alasan Bapak
Hmm.
untuk
Mas.
oh ya Mas,
Mas.
Ben,
Mas, boleh, ya.
untuk benar-benar memilih karir ini dan research tentang burung.
Okay.
Hmm.
What do you choose?
Jadi alasan
this,
core utamanya.
fast a career,
Yeah.
and what do you want to study about birds?
Oh man, everything. And what's the reason for studying birds? Right.
Uh-huh,
That was the question.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you saw the video from my childhood, right? Birds chose me. I can tell you
Ah.
what I love about birds, but why? Um,
Probably we're gonna give you another hour just to.
Probably, yeah. How much time do you have? I, this is my little piece of nature, but it doesn't have to be birds. I have lots of friends who focus on orangutans, on sea turtles. It's kind of whatever is your hook, use that because all of this is connected, and that's the magic, is that you get to learn from others who study different kinds of things and build knowledge together. So
Okay.
yeah.
I guess we could say it's a fate.
Sure, yeah, you could
Yeah.
call it fate. I mean, there are some enchanting things about birds that
Uh-huh.
are inescapable. They fly, they have feathers, they're modern dinosaurs. They have incredible songs. And you heard me beatboxing earlier. I'm a bit of a vocal acrobat, but imagine if this larynx became a fork inside my neck. That would be like a bird's syrinx, which has two sets of, or actually 4 sets of interplaying muscles that control wind from each lung. And so they can do crazy stuff that we can't. So I think I have a bit of a connection just as a vocalist with these singers.
Yeah. You get the.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get that.
I'm not at their
similarity.
level, but I'm inspired.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
With vocal ability and your ability to do beatbox and produce music that goes along with birds who can sing.
Yeah.
And with like what you said, the orchestra of the jungle, of the forest.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
The
that's
symphony
it.
that never sleeps.
Oh, the symphony that never sleeps.
Yeah.
That's a great title for your next book or album or something.
Sure, yeah. But it's more like a message.
Okay.
Go out and listen
Ah,
because it's always singing.
okay.
Always.
All right. Terima kasih
Terima kasih.
pertanyaannya. Next question. Okay. The next one.
Oh, are we going to give prizes for questions?
Oh,
Yeah.
the prizes
That's
is
great.
respect.
It's respect.
Okay,
Respect.
so first of all, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Angeline. What I want to ask is there a way for the forest that has gone void of sound have their sound back?
Oh.
Like their biodiversity is gone, right? So is there a way so the bird can live in the forest again? Gitu.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a great question. I have to believe the answer is yes, because hope is in our job description. As conservationists, you have to believe that this is possible. Otherwise, you're going to lose your motivation. So I would say yes, absolutely, but it's going to take a lot of work. These are ecosystems that existed long before we did. And so to replace what's been lost could take longer than any of our lifetimes, at least. But there are programs that people are engaging in to try to reintroduce these voices. I mentioned that some birds are extinct in the wild, but they still live in cages. Jalak suren, or the Javan pied starling, is a really good example of that. There are millions of them, but they all are in cages, except now there are about 40, maybe 42, that are living in the wild in East Java. The Prigen Conservation Breeding Arc is a breeding program. Remember the frog story? I told you can have them reproduce in captivity, and then once you have enough, if it's safe, you can let them back out into nature. But even that is not enough. When you let them out, you then have to monitor them, check on their health, make sure no one is catching them again. It's a ton of work, and it's not easy, but it's worth it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good question. I think about that a lot.
Hopefully we get to there.
Yeah,
soon, as
hopefully.
soon as possible. Yeah.
ASAP, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for the question. And we got another question. Do we have another question? Silakan.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I come here.
Okay.
Firstly, I want to thank to Mr. Mirin for bringing your life to concern about our nature. I have 2 questions here. So, based on your video, we know that birds have many important roles in our nature, but on the other hand, some people use and need them for economic purpose. So, what's your idea about how to keep the birds safe and how to keep their economic needs safe in a sustainable way? And the second question is, I think you have a great sense of combining the sounds of the nature. So, how can you harmonize the sounds of various creatures into music? Thank you.
Sure, and thank you very much. So the first question has to do with harmonizing these economic needs and the survival of the birds, right? Um, there are a lot of solutions. I can't claim to have all the answers, and I shouldn't because it's a group effort, right? And part of why I've lived here for almost a year is because I really want to know what Indonesian people think about this. This is happening in Indonesia. I shouldn't figure out the answers by myself. I'm not from this place. So it's been my gift to be, or my privilege to learn from lots of people who keep birds here. And one of the most common combinations I've seen, and that we're going to explore in more depth, is captive breeding and release, and then monitoring, like I said before. But at the same time, some birds will continue to be kept in captivity. Now, as to what those species will be, that can change every year. It's very trendy. So some species are in the hot seat 1 minute, and then the following year, it's a different species. But some of the bird keepers that I met in Kicamania are masters of keeping their birds happy. They really know how to feed them, keep them clean, keep them safe. And you can see it in the proof is in the birds. Even though for me it's more natural to see a bird in the wild, when you see these birds in cages with a master bird keeper, they're singing their hearts out. They've been trained, but singing takes a lot of work. It's an energetically taxing behavior. And so I think the real challenge for preserving bird keeping while protecting birds is helping bird keepers learn how to take really good care of their birds. Some of them already know, and I think they want to share their knowledge with other bird keepers. And the challenge is when you have these national singing contests and very famous people keeping birds, it becomes very trendy, and people watch these videos and they say, oh, I want a bird too, but they don't know what species they should buy, what food it needs, how often does it need to take a bath, what kind of cage do I have to buy. At that moment, if they still want to do bird keeping, it would be great to show them, okay, well, you want to do this, try to do it this way. Don't harvest these species, and look out for wild birds. Don't buy wild caught birds. Buy something bred in captivity because it's easier to train. Wild birds, you can see they fly around cages. They're hyperventilating. Their eyes are wide. They're terrified. That's a pretty easy way to say, oh, that's a wild bird. I shouldn't buy that. But if you buy a captive bred individual, particularly something like maybe perkutut, which does very well in captivity, and has robust wild populations too, you can take good care of it. The bird can have a long and happy life, and you won't be losing a bird, because if a bird dies in your care, that's another moment where I think we have to help people learn how to take responsibility by giving them knowledge and letting them make their own decisions. It can't be our job to say, you must do this. We have to give them the knowledge, and then they can make their own choice, like, oh, here's how I need to keep my bird alive. And if it dies, don't just go out and buy another one, because that leads to just buying more and more and more birds and not learning anything. And then it becomes like a tissue, or like a bouquet of flowers. They're pretty, then they die, you get more. But that's really catastrophic. That really accelerates consumption. So, I don't know if people in this room have been exposed to bird keeping before, or even if they come from families that keep birds. I'm not here to judge you. I just hope that all of us can learn a little bit more about how to take good care of these animals so that they can live longer and we don't cause them to suffer and go extinct. your other question was about how to choose bird songs for music and how that process works, right? Yeah. It's not in this talk, but it's a long process. It starts with writing a grant application to go find some sounds in nature. I have a dream to go somewhere. I will apply to get the team together, and if it's successful, then we go out in nature and we record the sounds ourselves. And then when I come back to the studio, I have one rule: no auto tune. Everything you're hearing is in the key of orangutan or the key of gibbon, and that is like microtones. So I will listen sometimes for hours just to a recording, and it will play and play and play. And like those cendrawasi you heard when I came on stage, I will write down moments that sound interesting to me, and I'll write what time in the recording it's happening, and then I'll go back and I'll cut out that piece. I'll put it on a synthesizer or a keyboard, and I'll play with it, and I'll chop it into little pieces. I'll play it like it's an instrument, and then eventually I get a collection of melodies that I can play for lots of different species at once, and I'll loop my voice and do a beat at the same time. And then you get this really kind of delightful and surprising connection of voices that is originally beautiful, then remixed, and sometimes really beautiful and exciting on the other side. But it's different every time. So, yeah.
Oke, sudah terjawab. So it's
Thanks.
Pretty difficult for the choosing of the sounds of the animals, right?
Well, sometimes the sounds choose themselves. You hear one recording, and you're like, "Well, there's the sound. There's the song, right there."
Okay.
Sometimes in music, they refer to this as aleatoric music, but it's sort of the unpredictable and randomized production of sound.
Sure.
And sometimes something will call, some rain will fall and a branch will break, and like that will form
Sound.
a rhythm,
Oh,
and
rhythm. Wow.
you loop that,
Uh-huh.
and you start to hear the music in the repetition, and then you start to add more things on there. So it's like a spiraling effect.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Tepuk tangan dulu dong. That's a great way to tell about your music. And we got a next question, but
Yeah.
before that, I think we got some presents right here, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. For those who asked the questions, tadi udah ada 3 orang, you get the prize. Benar ya? 3 orang yang tadi mana aja? 1, 2, 3. Nanti ya, setelah selesai event ya.
Yeah.
And you can win an exclusive meet and greet with Sam himself.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna took photos and sign some autographs, probably record some sounds. No, that's too much. All right, moving on to the next question. It's from our Instagram.
Yeah.
We got Nabila. Nabila from Instagram. What's the most unexpected thing that you found during your research? Most unexpected things.
The most. Yeah. Well, thank you, Namila, for the question. I would say, this whole year has been full of endless surprises. It's hard to pick. Well, you remember seeing the bird hunt in the presentation?
Sure.
Going into that, I thought it was going to be really dramatic. Hollywood soundtrack, suspense. Yeah, right, exactly. Law and Order, apparently. And the fact was, it was very normal, and that actually was pretty scary, because this is clearly something they do all the time.
Yeah.
It's no big deal.
It's been
you know.
passed on generations.
Yeah, it's very familiar, and they're very good at it. That hunt took less than an hour.
That hunt?
Yeah.
Took less than an hour?
Yeah, we went in and got something and came out. Fortunately, they released that bird, but as you could see from the trap, it still damages the feathers. And that particular trap was organic, so to speak. It's made from, non-synthetic material, but some people who are trapping don't use what I would call the right kind of stuff. They use chemicals from, well, I don't want to specify. I don't want to give people ideas, but let's just say it's not as safe as even a non-safe trap like that. So, yeah, that was a big surprise to me. I was expecting something really intense, and it was over in a flash. You know, they took
Sure.
it and then fortunately
Sure.
released it again. So
On a positive note,
yeah,
do you discover the sounds that you felt like, oh my God, this is like one of the best that I've discovered my whole life, learning about birds and stuff?
sure. Well, I mean, again, I always hesitate to say that I discovered anything because I'm just one person,
Sure.
and discovery is a group exercise. Um, I say discover with that frog sound because my team discovered it, and I happened to be the one who was holding the microphone.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure no one had put an underwater microphone in that river. But a lot of times when you go into these places, there are people who have already been there before you, sometimes for thousands of years.
Sure.
And the way they connect with nature is meaningful in itself.
Sure.
So,
But nobody brought a mic.
well, perhaps not, yeah. But there were people listening, you know.
Sure.
And I guess so. Some of the most surprising things that we've learned, like sounds in the field that we've discovered. That was the question. Uh, well, you know, I shared those voice gems with you, right, at the end of the
Yeah.
presentation, and that wasn't so much surprising, and I didn't discover anything in nature. Those species are well documented. People have recorded them before, but I discovered something in myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had been studying the bird trade for 6, 7 months, and was really trying to be a student of these traditions and listen, because that's my job. But when I took my parabolic mic, remember from the opening slide, that big radar-looking thing, and I went to these national parks and tracked down some of the species I had only ever seen in a cage. I got very emotional recording those birds, because when you see this song the way it's originally meant to be sung in its natural habitat, you realize you don't have control over any of this. And I think part of what we have to ask ourselves when we encounter this beauty is, must we control it, or can we live alongside it? And I just discovered in myself that there is no replacement for wild bird song. And some people say, okay, that means I want to catch a wild bird. It's not wild anymore. It's not living its life anymore. And being a guest in that environment and realizing that when you leave, the show continues. Some people might say that makes me feel less important, but I would say it makes me feel more human. I feel like I get to listen to this performance and find more meaning in what life is, and knowing that these birds are just on their own journey, living their lives. You know, we're all here for just a little while on the earth, and it's nice to have some company, not just in this room, but out in nature.
Out in nature, out in the forest,
Yeah.
singing their songs.
Yeah. So that kind of shocked me, because I felt that way coming in and really tried to suspend a lot of that and listen to what's happening here in Kichamani and the songbird trade. And I've learned a lot, but it was just interesting to notice. I went back into nature, and all those feelings came right back. So that inspires me a lot in terms of next steps for the project. So.
All right. Next question.
Mm.
We have from Instagram by the name of Farrell. Hi, Farrell. How you doing?
Hi, Farrell.
What is your inspiration in producing this kind of music? Probably your idol, probably your
Oh,
reference.
like human inspiration?
Sure.
Okay, because that's important, a distinction. I would say initially I was working by myself, but that was short-lived. One of the great things about chasing your passions is when you meet someone else who's working in the same space. And it's important, don't get competitive, don't get territorial. You know, you guys are in the same the same boat. I mean, I've met other people who now make music with animal sounds. I didn't know. I thought I was the only one, but
Okay.
I'm not the only wildlife DJ. I might be the only person who calls myself that.
Okay.
But I've met a number of amazing musicians just by kind of leaving the beaten path and hacking my way through the brush to this clearing where others had already gone. Paul Winter's a really good example. David Rothenberg, both of whom are personal friends of mine.
Sure.
And they play more traditional instruments in nature. And so they get to kind of duet back and forth.
Sure.
And that's really magical to me because a lot of the stuff I use is very plastic and metal and digital. And I like the idea of holding something wooden and going into the woods. And,
Okay.
that's what those guys do. And of course, we're not the first generation to do this. I
Sure.
mean, Mozart has been rumored to keep a starling. Oliver Messiaen composed a lot of beautiful classical music based on birdsong. A lot of people have tried transcribing birdsong using musical notation also. My friend Alexander Lieberman at Juilliard has done a lot of work like that. So, yeah, a lot of great company.
Sure. Sure.
yeah.
So hopefully to a lot more wildlife DJ. But
Yeah.
the question that we want to ask, I'm sure a lot of people in this room super inspired to be a wildlife DJ like you. The question is, can we do that? I mean, is there a simple way
Yes, there
like
is.
to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah?
You want to show them?
All
I have an
right.
idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
All right. Let's move on to this magic laptop.
Do you all remember Beastbox?
Okay.
So this is a free online game, and I'm going to show you how you can play. And then Masreza is going to make a beat with me.
All right.
All right.
Or di sini ada yang mau coba juga. Is there anyone
Yeah.
want to try? Okay.
We can show you how it works,
Okay.
and then once the beat gets going, maybe you'll feel a moment of inspiration.
I'm gonna be your co-DJ. Is that true? Is that
Join the
word?
party,
No,
man.
I don't-
Absolutely. Okay, let's see.
So everyone can access the website, the
Yep.
app.
Yep. And we're gonna drag it over here,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna drive my laptop backwards, which will be interesting. So there's my website.
Okay. benmirin.com.
Yep.
Coba
And
sambil dicek ya.
yeah, and see up there? It says Beastbox.
Beastbox.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you click on that.
Okay.
So as soon as we start the game, the music is going to start. But let
Okay.
me just tell you what to
Okay.
expect.
Oops, sorry.
And you'll need to use the mouse and kind of look behind you.
Okay.
But there's going to be a stage, and you can click. You can click on the animals along the bottom,
Okay.
and they will jump into the stage and begin singing and dancing.
Okay.
And you can make your own beat from nature. You can try to compose a beat where all the animals are from the same ecosystem.
Uh-huh.
And once you make a beat, I can show you a little bit more information about the singers you've chosen.
Okay.
You ready?
So I'm gonna just start play.
He's gonna click play.
Okay. Yo.
That's
Okay.
me.
Ready?
So you can click anywhere to start.
Okay.
Now along the bottom here are 30 animals to choose from. And you can scroll.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Cornell Lab did an amazing job with this concept. I have to give them a shout out.
Okay, I'm gonna start with this guy with the glasses.
Okay, that's a bold choice.
Okay.
Make it happen.
Just click it.
Yep. And here we go. Remember? The Empress cicada, the loudest cicada, the loudest insect in the world. So now you can add some more.
Okay. And probably this guy over here.
Sure. Humpback whales. Should we get the audience to tell us which one to add next.
Yang mana? Yang mana? Pilih yang mana?
Yeah, on the bottom here.
Bilang stop ya. Mana?
Mana?
Yang mana?
Okay, here.
Kiri.
So, 1, 2, 3, etc. So
Okay.
call out a number. 3. Okay, so
Okay, number 3.
some sick frog action. Okay, another one. What number? 1. Over here, mouse.
Where's the mouse?
There it is.
Oh, itu. Whoa.
Up there. I see it. Okay, so I heard 1 and also 5, right? Yeah, okay, so that's this. Can you find the
Pretty hard
mouse?
to find the cursor. Can't really find the mouse.
me
Really
see.
trying to figure it out. Now I'm rapping at a beat. Really don't know how to rap. Just buying more time. All right. Tepuk tangan dulu dong.
Well done. Now you are all wildlife DJs.
Wow. So all of you can access the website.
Yeah.
And you can take the beat and take the animals and go make beautiful sounds.
You can make your own music, and my favorite part is if you click on the information,
Okay.
it takes you down.
Wow.
You can learn about the original authors of each of the sounds. And, I know, right? It's pretty cool. You can also play the sound that we recorded in nature and that I sampled to make the music. That's the frog.
Okay.
Cope's gray tree frog. The sound of the summer where I come from.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
Brings you back home.
Yeah, absolutely. Sound does that. Let's scroll around a bit. So
Great crown crane.
those are still the frogs. The cicada that we heard before.
This one that I chose at first, right?
Yeah.
The one with the glasses.
It's loud. Whew. Let's see. Let's look for some charismatic megafauna to complement the microfauna. Look at all this stuff. Ooh. How about this orangutan? The long call of a male orangutan. And remember the gibbon from earlier?
Uh-huh. Wow.
You can hear the whoop, 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 whoop. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. Whoop. That when I hear that, that's what happens in my brain. So this is just like how I get the brain out.
This is sort of like your brain. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and this is the way to share what my brain is thinking. But yeah, you can learn all about these different animals and where they come from, and of course go back to the beat. And if you want to learn more, my TED Talk's included in the videos down below, and there's lots of material for you to explore. So there's even a free curriculum for any teachers in the room who might want to use this with their students.
Wow. Once again, guys, you can check it out. Tepuk tangan sekali lagi. Anything that you want to add, man, to the audience? Anything that you want to add? Anything that you want to say as a closing remarks?
Just thank you. Thanks for listening. And I mean that at every level.
And don't forget to check out your socials as well.
Oh, yeah. Please follow me if you'd like to. It's just my name, Ben Mirin, on Instagram.
Okay,
Yeah.
so when you post it tonight, make sure to tag him.
Yeah.
Okay, so he could repost it.
Yeah, totally.
So he could have Insta story like selebgram in Indonesia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
di-follow back dulu. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very
Okay.
much once again. Tepuk
Makasih
tangan
semua.
untuk Ben Mirin, ladies and gentlemen. And right now, I'm gonna give the stage back to the host for tonight. Thank you very much.
Woo! Can we give a huge round of applause to our Wildlife DJ Ben and also Kak Reza? Thank you so much, guys, for turning this night into a blast. Thank you so much to all of our audience. Hope that everyone had fun. And if you'd like to join this kind of event, don't forget to check our social media. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at ATAmerica. You can also go through our website at www.atamerica.or.id. So again, thank you so much, everyone. Again, my name is Sadila, and we will see you at the next Atamerica event. Thank you, guys. And now we will take pictures with the left audience first, and then we'll move to the right one.